Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NYSTRA Annual Conference. My name is Noelle Molloy, and I am a Credentialing and Test Development Specialist here at NCTRC. And today's topic that we are going to discuss for the next hour is the NCTRC Recertification Process, Continuing Professional Competence. Before we begin our session, I just want to read our NCTRC disclaimer. This disclaimer is basically put into our presentation so that we know that when you are viewing this presentation at a later date, that the contents of this presentation is of the NCTRC certification standards as of April 2021. We also do highly recommend that when you are ready to recertify with NCTRC, or when you are ready to submit a new application to NCTRC, that you do check out our website to make sure that you are meeting the most current requirements prior to your application submission. The learning objectives for today are we're going to talk about the recertification standards, including the two components as to how you can get recertified, the different interpretive guidelines for each of those components, the necessary hours required for recertification, and also the requirements for the specialization area designation. And along with those areas, we are also going to talk about the National Job Analysis, job task areas, and knowledge areas, which are really important to be aware of as an active CTRS, as well as a new applicant to NCTRC. And we are also going to talk about the two NCTRC recertification options. So before we begin, basically, I want to just share with you NCTRC's core purpose and mission statement. Our ultimate core purpose at NCTRC as a credentialing organization is to protect the safety of consumers of recreational therapy services. And how we meet our core purpose is to ensure that any individuals that are holding that CTRS credential, the Certified Therapeutic Recreation Specialist credential, is going to be meeting specific requirements and standards in order to provide quality services to the individuals that they serve. So basically, when you became a CTRS, there were specific entry-level requirements that you needed to meet. And then as an active CTRS, there are specific requirements you need to meet as to maintain your certification and to get recertified every 5 years. So when we are talking about your certification and maintaining your certification, there are a couple of things that NCTRC does want to remind you. The one important thing that we want to remind you is to keep your name, address, telephone numbers, and especially your email address up to date and current. NCTRC's first line of communication with you as an active CTRS will be an email. We don't send out paper mailings any longer. We will make phone calls if we really need to talk to you about something urgent, but basically our first line of communication will be an email to you. If you are not receiving emails from NCTRC, I highly encourage you to go to your dashboard profile, and we will take a look at that in a little bit, and make sure that your email address is up to date. Make sure your email address is inputted correctly, and make sure it's an email address that you actually check on a regular basis. And I only share this because there have been several times where individuals will call the office and they'll let us know that they haven't gotten emails from NCTRC. And when we tell them the email address that we have on file for them, they will say to us, well, I don't check that email, or that email is not active any longer, or I don't, that email I don't use any longer. So we really do need to make sure that you do have that up-to-date information in your dashboard profile. The great thing is that you actually have access to all of this information when you do log into your dashboard profile, and you can make changes to any of this information on your dashboard profile except for your name. Your name is the only thing that you cannot change on your own, and that does have to go through an NCTRC staff person. Along with maintaining your certification with keeping all of your demographic information up to date, you will have your annual renewal application that you need to fill out on a yearly basis. That application is also found on your dashboard profile, and the annual fee that you will need to be paying at this point is $80 a year. Once you do pay your annual renewal, you are updated for another year, and you are do have access to an updated certificate on your dashboard profile as well. The third thing that you need to do for maintaining your certification is your recertification process, and that is what we are going to talk about today. That recertification process occurs at the end of your 5-year cycle. We are going to talk about the recertification options that you currently have in order to recertify with NCTRC, and there is an additional fee for recertification. The current fee for recertification is $25. So when you are at that 5-year recertification cycle time, you will be paying NCTRC $105, your $80 annual renewal fee for that upcoming year, and then your $25 recertification fee to recertify your information for the next 5 years. NCTRC offers continuing education pre-approval programs. We have a different variety of programs that you can take part in as a CTRS, or if you work for an organization or you're on an organizational board, you can actually utilize the pre-approval programs as well. So under the CTRS Continuing Education Pre-Approval Program, you can actually submit, again, on your dashboard profile, continuing education hours that you would like to get pre-approved by NCTRC. And these hours can be hours that you've already taken place and that you've already completed, or they can be hours that you have not completed yet, just for pre-approval for that content area to make sure that they do meet the requirements for recertification. The process does include you submitting a $35 fee and any documentation that you would want us to review for the continuing education that you are submitting. So if you are submitting continuing education that has already been completed, you would submit to NCTRC a certificate of completion. On that certificate of completion, it does need to have your name, the date, the title, and the length of the training so that NCTRC can pre-approve the content of that training. If you are submitting continuing education that you have not quite attended, but you want to get pre-approval for, what you will need to submit to NCTRC is a lot of the same information, but obviously you wouldn't have a certificate of completion. But we would need to see the title of the continuing education that you are participating in or going to be participating in, the length of that continuing education, and when that continuing education will be offered. We want to make sure that whatever continuing education that you are getting pre-approved will fall within your 5-year recertification cycle. Along with getting pre-approval for continuing education for just your general CTRS recertification, you can actually submit continuing education for pre-approval for your specialization area designation application as well. And we're going to talk about the specialization area later on in this presentation. So that is the CTRS CEU pre-approval program. That is for you as an individual CTRS to take part in. So along with the individual continuing education pre-approval program, NCTRC has organizational pre-approvals. So we actually have a 2-tier organizational pre-approval. We have a pre-approval where organizations that are not TR organizations send in their conferences and their trainings for NCTRC to pre-approve that content, and it is reviewed prior to the conference. So now when you are attending conferences that are, if it's an ATRA conference or a NYSTRA conference, or if it's a conference that's outside of the recreation therapy field, and you see on that individual's website that the content of these sessions have been pre-approved by NCTRC, there is a good chance that NCTRC has pre-approved that content. If you're not sure and you want to confirm with NCTRC, always feel free to send us an email or give us a call, and we would be happy to let you know if that happens to be an organization that we did pre-approve their trainings. And again, the third level of pre-approval is the ATRA CTRA pre-approval process. So ATRA being our American Therapeutic Recreation Association, CTRA being the Canadian Therapeutic Recreation Association. So those two membership organizations send to NCTRC conferences to be pre-approved. So those could be any of the ATRA conferences, the ATRA annual conference, but also the membership organizations that belong to ATRA that do offer conferences throughout the year. And again, that conference education would be pre-approved. The content would be pre-approved and reviewed by NCTRC prior to the conference. So again, if you are applying, if you are going to a conference and you see on that conference brochure that NCTRC has pre-approved the content, there is a good chance that NCTRC has pre-approved the content. A good example is that NCTRC has reviewed and pre-approved the sessions for this NYSTRA conference. So let's go back to the recertification program. So the purpose of the recertification program is for you as that active CTRS to maintain your continuing professional competence in therapeutic recreation. So again, going back to our mission statement and our core purpose of protecting the consumer of recreation therapy services, this recertification program helps to ensure that those individuals that are holding that CTRS credential are maintaining or increasing their professional competence within the field of recreation therapy, therefore fulfilling our mission and our core purpose. So we don't make the recertification program to have it so that it's difficult for you to maintain your certification, or when you look at the hours, you say, oh my gosh, here I go again, I have to do this. That's not why NCTRC has this program in place. We have this program in place that helps to ensure us that those individuals that are holding that CTRS credential that you are continuing to maintain your professional competence and that you are continuing to grow that professional competence within the field of therapeutic recreation. Over your 5-year period, it is actually your responsibility to collect and maintain all recertification materials. So we put this in the presentation because a lot of times individuals will call NCTRC and say, hey, how many hours do I have towards recertification? And we have to say to that person, hey, we don't know because we don't get any documentation from any of the conferences that you attend when you attend them. So the NCTRC doesn't automatically get your continuing education when you go to a conference. It's up to you to collect and maintain all of those recertification materials over your 5-year cycle. The beauty about this new dashboard profile, which we will look at in a little bit, is that you can actually use your dashboard profile as a little saving spot for all of those documents that you are going to be collecting over your 5-year cycle. So therefore, when you are due to recertify, you don't look in your drawer or your closet or the kitchen cabinets and say, oh my goodness, I don't know where I put my continuing education documents. I've lost them. They got lost in a flood. They got lost in the move. They can actually be all put into your application. So when you submit your recertification application, you are good to go. And the information is right there at your fingertips. So we will look at that again in a little bit. There are a couple of options that you can utilize to recertify with NCTRC. Now, I know a lot of you are looking at that second option, that NCTRC exam, and you are saying to yourself, no way, no how I am going to retake that NCTRC exam. However, we want to let you know and to remind you that it is an option to recertify. Especially now with individuals maybe not being able to get their work hours or maybe not being able to get their education, you always have that option to retake the NCTRC exam. You obviously will need to pass that exam in order to be recertified. But the other option, which is the option that the majority of you use, is that education and work experience option. The education being the 50 hours over a 5-year period, the work experience hours of 480 hours over the 5-year period. NCTRC does not require you to complete any specific amount of hours per year over your 5-year period. So if you're a procrastinator, you can wait till your last year, do all of your 50 hours of education and all of your 480 hours of work experience. It may be a little rough on the work experience, especially if you're not working full time, but it can certainly be done in the last year of your 5-year recertification cycle. I personally don't recommend that you do that, but you know, there are procrastinators out there that may say, oh yeah, I'm going to take my time and do my hours. Then we have those individuals that get their work done right away. So at the beginning of their 5-year cycle, they have all of their 50 hours completed and done and ready to go. And if they are working full time, then obviously you would be meeting that 480 hour of professional work experience over the 5-year cycle. So when we do look at the recertification process, you do need to complete your application, and you need to submit that application by the due date, no later than your due date. And again, we are going to look at that dashboard profile in a little bit. And if you are selected for audit, you will get an email, again, going back to that email, making sure that your email is up to date and correct in the system, because if you are randomly selected for audit, you will get an email from NCTRC immediately after submitting your recertification application, letting you know that you've been selected for audit and letting you know that you will have to upload your continuing education documents within 15 days. Now, NCTRC gives you a 15-day window to submit that information to us. But if you cannot get that information to us within 15 days, just give us a call and we will work with you. Going back to that little savings spot that we talked about in the previous slide, if you have already put all of your continuing education documents within your recertification application, then there's nothing that you need to do when you're randomly selected for audit, except review the information that you submitted in your application and then send it right back to NCTRC into staff review. So again, really a good process to start to utilize over your 5-year cycle to start saving your continuing education documents within that recertification application. If you are not selected for audit, you will also get an automatic email from NCTRC, but that email will say, congratulations, your application has been processed, you have been recertified, and now you're good for the next 5 years. So in either case, you will get an email immediately after submitting your application to NCTRC on your dashboard profile. Talking about the continuing education documents, we touched on this a little bit before, but when you are submitting those documents, they do need to include these important areas: your name, the date, the title of the course or the program or the conference or whatever you attended, the amount of hours that were earned during that program, workshop, session, conference, and that you want to make sure that the content that you had participated in does relate to the job analysis knowledge areas. That is a document found on our website, which we will take a look at in a little bit. I will give you a little bit of a tour of the website as well. So you do need to make sure that the document has all of this information on it before you do submit it to NCTRC. Now, we put name on here, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, the name should be an automatic. My name should be on documents. But sometimes they are not. Sometimes you may attend a conference where they have just a whole bunch of copies of the continuing education document with nobody's name on it, and they give you that document. And you have to fill your name in order for that document to be valid to submit to NCTRC. If for some reason this type of document is not available, or you happen to lose it, or you just can't find it, what you can actually do for alternative documentation for NCTRC is you can get a verification letter. That letter can come from your employment, or that can come from the conference provider, or that can come from an education coordinator at your agency or your organization. And basically that letter can list out what continuing education that you may have completed over the 5-year period. But that letter would have to say, this is to verify that Noelle Molloy attended the following sessions. And then the sessions do need to be listed out by date, title, and length, because NCTRC needs to see A, that the course does relate to the job analysis knowledge area, B, that the course was a minimum of 1 hour in length, and C, that the course or the continuing education that you participated in actually fell within your 5-year cycle. So talking about this job analysis, everyone's saying, what exactly is this job analysis? And why does Noelle keep referring to it? Well, the job analysis is really the backbone of us at NCTRC, and it's the backbone of your continuing education content. It's the backbone of your job tasks as a CTRS. It's the backbone of the exam content outline for those of you that may be taking the exam again, or for those of you that are going to be taking the exam for the first time. So basically what the job analysis does, it delineates the important tasks and knowledge areas needed for competent practice in therapeutic recreation, going back to our mission and our core purpose. And again, the job analysis is broken down into job tasks, which is your practical experience, the things that you do as a CTRS on a daily basis, and the knowledge areas, the conceptual knowledge that you need in order to do those job tasks. As a matter of fact, NCTRC has just completed a new job analysis. So I am hoping that all of you CTRSs out there did take the time to answer the survey that did come in your email box. I apologize for the mass amount of reminders to fill out that job analysis, but we really wanted to make sure that we got a good representation of CTRSs that are practicing in the field. So thank you if you filled it out, and you will be seeing the results and the data over the next couple of months, and probably will be released at the beginning of 2022. So going back to those knowledge areas, these are the current knowledge areas of the job analysis. Under each of these knowledge areas, there are specific tasks and smaller areas to look at, but these are the overall domains. So we're looking at foundational knowledge, the assessment process, documentation, implementation, administration, and advancement of the profession. When we do look at the knowledge areas and the content of your continuing education for recertification, there are specific interpretive guidelines that do need to be met in order for that continuing education to meet requirements. The interpretive guidelines on this slide does specifically talk about continuing education. So continuing education meaning conferences, workshops, webinars, in services at your agency or your organization. In services can count for recertification as long as it does meet this criteria. The criteria being that activity skill courses are not acceptable for recertification. The definition of an activity skill course would be a course where more than 50% of the course is actually spent doing the skill. So a good example of an activity skill session would be a session where you go to a session on yoga training, and more than 50% of that session is actually doing yoga poses, as opposed to, excuse me, excuse me, sorry about that, as opposed to more than 50% of the session talking about the intervention skills, which is the second guideline, excuse me, that you see on this slide. An intervention skills session is acceptable, and that is where more than 50% of the session is actually talking about the intervention. It's talking about how you would adapt that intervention to a specific population. It's talking about the specific goals and objectives of that specific intervention. And then maybe like 10 or 15 minutes or a smaller portion of the actual program or session or course is spent on actually doing the intervention. So it's really important that we understand that activity skills are not acceptable, intervention skill sessions are acceptable. And the specific guideline and the specific definition of both of these areas can be found in the certification standards on our website. So we will look at that also in a little bit. Also, the continuing education needs to be a minimum of 1 hour in length for it to count for recertification. So if you attended any sessions that were 45 minutes or 30 minutes, they will not meet recertification requirements or the interpretive guideline. We also look for professional level education. Professional level education means that you would be participating in education that is geared towards individuals with a bachelor's degree or higher. So any education that's geared towards high school graduates or high school students would not count for recertification. Along with the interpretive guidelines for continuing education, we're looking at the interpretive guidelines for professional publications. So along with participating in conferences or workshops or in-services or webinars, you can actually publish different publications in order to earn hours towards that 50 hours of continuing education required for your 5-year cycle. With the professional publications, that content does need to be relevant to the job analysis knowledge areas. You do need to submit a copy of the publication or title page, the table of contents, and the publication date. Again, we do need to see the title, so we need to make sure that it does relate to the job analysis knowledge areas. We need to see the publication date to make sure that it was published during your 5-year cycle. And the CTRS that is submitting this for recertification needs to have been either the author, co-author, or editor of that publication. When you visit our certification standards, there is a whole chart within the certification standards that lists out the different publications that are acceptable by NCTRC and the different amount of hours that you would get for each publication. In addition to going to conferences and doing publications, you can actually do professional presentations to get hours towards your 50 hours for recertification. 1 hour of presentation is equal to 2 hours per presenter. So for example, this hour presentation would be worth 2 hours towards my 50 hours of continuing education. If you co-present with somebody, each presenter does get those 2 hours or more if you're doing a 3-hour session or that sort of thing towards your recertification. If you are submitting presentations for recertification, you will need to submit evidence of that presentation. Evidence of the presentation does include a thank you letter from the conference provider showing that you did complete the presentation. Typically in that thank you letter, it should include your name somewhere, the date of your presentation, the title of your presentation, and the length of your presentation. You cannot get credit for repeat or multiple presentations of the same material, which means that if I did this session, this recertification session 10 times, I can only get 2 hours for this particular session. Along with the interpretive guidelines on the slide before, professional presentations do include presentations at professional conferences or workshops or webinars if you're doing an online presentation of a research or program poster activity at a conference or workshop, or you can also do guest lecturing at a college or university course. If a professor invites you to do a presentation at their college, at their class, you can count that presentation for hours towards your recertification. In addition to all of those other areas that you can get hours, you can also get hours for supervision. You can get continuing education credit hours for supervising interns, as well as for supervising equivalency path applicants to NCTRC. So with the interns, you can supervise up to 3 interns per 5-year recertification cycle, and each intern is worth 5 hours for that cycle. So if you do 3 interns in your 5-year recertification cycle, you can actually get 15 hours towards your 50 hours for recertification. There are some specific criteria and guidelines that do need to be met in order to receive these hours. One of those guidelines is that the interns cannot be supervised simultaneously, so it does have to be 3 separate internship times during that 5-year cycle. The other criteria is that there is a competency-based evaluation that does need to be filled out and submitted with your recertification application. And on that evaluation, there are 3 signatures that are required: your signature, the student's signature, and the academic supervisor's signature. So I will show you that evaluation in a little bit. And again, you can get continuing education credits for supervising equivalency path applicants. So we do have applicants that do submit applications to NCTRC utilizing work experience. And there is one path that they would have to do work experience working under an active CTRS for a minimum of 1,500 hours. So if you are actually supervising an individual that will be applying to NCTRC using the equivalency path, you can get 2 hours per equivalency path applicant that you supervise for a maximum of 6 hours over your 5-year cycle. And again, there's that competency-based evaluation that does need to be submitted when you are due to recertify. Those evaluations need to be held on to until you are due to recertify, or again, you can add them to that recertification application as a depository for when you are due for your 5-year recertification cycle. So you can also get hours towards recertification if you take an academic course. And an academic course is probably the quickest way for you to get hours towards your 50 hours if you do choose to go that route. Courses offered at any college or university, you will have to submit an official transcript that shows the course title and how many credits you were earned, and the content does have to relate to the job analysis knowledge areas. If you take a 3-semester credit course, you will get 45 hours towards your 50 hours. So on this slide, there is a listing of courses if you audit a course or if you actually take the course for academic credit. If you take a 3-semester credit course for academic credit, that is worth 45 of your 50 hours. And it does not only have to be a course in recreation therapy, it could be a course in some sort of supportive area that does relate to the job analysis knowledge areas. For example, you can take psychology courses, counseling courses, adaptive physical education courses, any type of course that would relate to those job analysis knowledge areas. And again, going back to our slide a bit ago, you can get that course pre-approved from NCTRC prior to enrolling to ensure that the content will meet recertification requirements. So with that, this option that we're talking about, with your 50 hours of continuing education, you not only have to get the 50 hours over the 5-year period, but you also have to get that minimum of 480 hours of work experience over that 5-year period. And these are 480 hours over a 5-year period. It's not required each year of your 5-year cycle. So when you break down 480 hours over a 5-year period, that comes out to approximately 2 hours a week of doing therapeutic recreation professional work experience for a 5-year cycle. And you can meet this requirement with any of the particular job titles below. Direct service provider, supervisor, administrator. You can even volunteer in the field and still get those 480 hours of therapeutic recreation professional experience. If you are serving on a board, if anybody out there that's listening to this presentation is serving on the NYSTRA board and you're not working full-time in the field, professional service on a therapeutic recreation board can actually count towards that professional work experience hours. When you are due to do your recertification, your 5-year recertification, there is actually a verification form that would need to be filled out to verify that you did complete those 480 hours. You don't have to submit that verification form unless your application is randomly selected for audit. What defines therapeutic recreation professional experience? Basically, we're looking for evidence of the TR process. We all know what the TR process is, right? We know that it's assessment, planning, implementation, evaluation, documentation. So we're looking for some sort of evidence of that process. You do not have to do every single area of the process, but we do need to see evidence of some part of that process. And here are the current job task areas that we do look for when we are looking at your professional work experience for recertification. So any of these job task areas, you could do 100% of the time just in awareness and advocacy within recreation therapy, and your work experience would count for recertification. The interpretive guidelines related to your professional experience is that we do need to get that documentation. So you can submit the verification form that NCTRC has available to you on our website, or if you want to submit your own verification form from Human Resources or your supervisor. And again, it can be a very simple letter. This is to verify that Noelle Molloy worked a minimum of 480 hours in therapeutic recreation services from 2020 to 2025. Nothing fancy, nothing long. We just need to see that you did 480 hours in therapeutic recreation service over your 5-year period. And again, I did talk about the professional service experience. So if you are serving on a therapeutic recreation board, you can use that experience for towards your 480 hours, or you can do volunteer professional experience as well. So if you are not working in the field and you want to volunteer in the field to maintain your certification, you would have to complete the 480 hours as a volunteer in order to recertify at the end of your 5-year period. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the specialization area designation. NCTRC recently introduced this designation several years ago, and the purpose of this designation is to recognize certificates that have the opportunity to have advanced knowledge and skill in a specialized area of practice. And this process is only available to those individuals that are submitting the recertification application. So it's only available at the time of your 5-year recertification. So if you are in the process of, getting ready to recertify, you may not be able to fulfill this process at this point. But if you're at the beginning of your recertification cycle, or you're in the middle of your recertification cycle, you can certainly maybe look at this process and consider applying for it when you are due to recertify. It is considered an added option on top of your CTRS recertification process. Here is a listing of the current specialization areas that NCTRC offers. And basically what you would need to do if you are interested in applying for any of these areas is to identify which area best suits your needs, and then which area you have the most hours of continuing education in. Basically, you would need to choose one of these areas, and you would have to complete a minimum of 75 hours of continuing education specific in the area that you choose. So it would have to be absolutely specified to, let's say if you choose behavioral health, all of your trainings would have to be specific to behavioral health. If you chose physical medicine and rehab, all of your 75 hours would have to be specific to physical medicine and rehab. And that's 75 total hours. So if you submit a specialization area designation application with 75 hours, then that recertification becomes part of that process. In addition to the 75 hours of continuing education for the specialization area, you also would need to complete a minimum of 5,000 hours of work experience within that specialization area. So you really would need to look at your work experience to see if you have that 5,000 hour mark and the 75 hours of continuing education. The application fees are as follows. If you do choose to take part in the specialization area designation, it would be an additional $25 fee that you would be submitting to NCTRC, along with your $25 recertification fee. So if you were applying for the specialization area designation, it would be $50 for those two particular areas, the specialization area recertification fee, and then your $80 annual fee. If you are applying for the specialization area designation, your application will be automatically audited because NCTRC would have to ensure that you did complete all of those 75 hours within that specialized area. So let's talk about the other option to get recertified, the exam. I know you guys are all saying, yes, definitely, that's what I want to do. I want to retake the exam. Again, it's an option, and it's a really good option sometimes, especially if you're unable to attend sessions, you're unable to attend conferences, you're unable to work in the field, but you still want to maintain your certification. You can retake the exam. You basically would submit an exam registration form that, again, is found on your dashboard profile, and the fee. And the current exam fee is $325. So I know the exam may be really cumbersome to take, but when you look at the financial situation between taking the exam versus actually doing conferences, it's probably more cost efficient to retake the exam for $325. This is the exam content outline. So you can find the specific content outline on our website. And again, underneath each of these content areas, there are specific tasks and areas that do need to be recognizable and be, has some knowledge base in order to be able to take and pass the exam. Exam fast facts, just a quick little blurb to remind you how the exam is offered. It is currently a 150 multiple choice question exam. It is a computer-based exam, so you will take it on a computer at a testing site. You have 3 hours to complete the exam. And when you take the exam, you will be notified immediately after completing the exam whether or not you have passed or whether you have failed. The exam is offered at testing sites, but NCTRC has recently introduced live remote proctoring for exams. Live remote proctoring is when you actually can take the exam at the comfort of your home or at the comfort of a spot that you choose. However, there are definitely specific criteria and variables that need to be met in order for you to be able to take that exam as a live remote proctored exam. So if this is something that you are potentially interested in doing for recertification, I highly recommend that you check out our website under the exam page to see all the different variables and requirements that need to be met in order to take a live remote proctored exam. So once you submit your recertification, there's going to be a decision. The decision is going to be either you've been approved, if you've been randomly selected for audit, or if you've not been randomly selected for audit, potentially you will all be approved, and you can go to your dashboard profile and you can actually print your updated CTRS certificate. And you can find that on your dashboard profile at any time during your 5-year cycle. If you need an updated certificate, it will always be there for you. It will be updated through 1 year from the time that you submit your application, because you are, like we talked about earlier, required to submit an annual maintenance application to NCTRC. So you will not see your certificate have your 5-year recertification date, but it will have your annual renewal date on it. If for some reason your recertification application was denied, you do have the opportunity to submit an appeal application for review by the Standards Hearing Committee. The Standards Hearing Committee is a committee that is composed of volunteers that are active CTRSs that would take a look at your appeal application and any additional supporting documentation that you submit as part of that appeal, and they would make a final decision on your application. The final decision can be that they have overturned our decision and that your application has been approved and that you've been recertified. Their final decision can be that it affirms the denial on your application. And then if you are affirmed a denial on your application, you do have the opportunity to take part in NCTRC's reentry program. The reentry program does require you to take and pass the exam within 2 years of your 5-year expiration date. So a brief summary, and then we're going to go to our website and I'm going to kind of give you a little tour. You want to submit your application by the due date, and we're going to see on your dashboard profile where that due date happens to be. You want to decide education and work experience or retaking that wonderful exam that I know you guys are all excited to do. Consider submitting a specialization area designation application. It's a great way to show your employer and your peers that you do have highly specialized skills in a specific area. And use your continuing education to develop your professional career. You have to complete 50 hours over your 5-year period. Choose continuing education that's going to help you to be a better practitioner, to help you become a better CTRS, and to help you to better serve the clients that you serve. When you are being a CTRS, invest in yourself. Get involved in your profession. Try to get involved in NYSTRD. Try to get involved in ATRA. Try to get involved in some sort of professional membership organization. Involvement is so important, especially for your younger CTRSs, to network and to feel like you're not alone in the field and to really be able to talk to other professionals that are dealing with what you're dealing with. Be driven to continuous learning and improvement of your skills. Again, you need to do those 50 hours. So choose those 50 hours that are going to help you to be a very good therapist in therapeutic recreation. Use us. We are here for you. You can email us. You can call us. You can email us with a phone number and we'll give you a call. We are always here for you. We are always here to support you. always call us with questions. There's never a question that's a silly question, and we will always get back to you. And be proud of your credential. You worked really, really hard. You worked really, really hard to maintain it over your 5-year period. Be proud of it, maintain it, proudly show it with your certificate, with the pin that you wear. Show everybody that you happen to be an active CTRS. You are a qualified professional of therapeutic recreation services by holding that CTRS credential. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for listening to me. I am going to switch gears now to go to our website. And I have about 18 minutes left to show you the website, which is just enough time to go through the process. So this is the NCTRC website. I'm sure most of you have seen it before. If you have not visited it, I do highly recommend that you take a little look around. It is a great website with a lot of interesting documentation, a lot of interesting materials that you can use as an active CTRS. So the first place I'm going to bring you is in the publications and forms area. This is where every publication and every marketing material NCTRC publishes, you will find here. One of the most important things that you should review on a regular basis is the certification standards. The certification standards include information for individuals becoming a CTRS and information for individuals for recertification. So if you're not really quite sure about the recertification standards after listening to the presentation, the whole thing that what we just talked about, you can find in the certification standards. So definitely a good publication to take a look at. Also going down here to the job analysis report, we talked about the job analysis extensively during this presentation. We talked about the job analysis knowledge areas. We talked about the job analysis task areas. So you want to be familiar with this report. In this report, it does list out, forgive me for going so fast, the different job task domains. So you can see, I will make this a little bit bigger, those different job task domains and all of the different tasks that do fall under each of those domains. So if you ever question whether or not you're doing recreation therapy, you can take a look at this list of job task domains and you can say, yep, I'm doing, professional relationships 1-1, I'm doing assessment, and I'm doing awareness and advocacy, and then you will be doing some part of that TR process. And then along with those job task areas, here are the knowledge areas. These are the areas where your continuing education need to fall under. So you need to be familiar with the different areas and all of the different topics that fall under each of these areas. So when you are doing your continuing education, refer to this document so it will help you to better choose the continuing education that you need to meet recertification. Going back to, sorry, let me go. I lost the website, so let me go back to the website. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, here we go. We're back to our website. Some technological problems. Okay, so again, publications and forms, really great place to go. Here is also where you will find that employment verification form, which I had talked about before. The employment verification form that you will need to get filled out if you do get selected for audit. Here you will also find the internship supervision, a form that you can fill out if you want to get hours for supervising interns. Remember, you get 5 hours per intern for a total of 15 hours over your 5-year period. Or here's also the supervision for equivalency path applicants. And again, you get 2 hours per equivalency path applicant for a total of 6 hours over your 5-year period. So I highly encourage you to take a look at those different forms. Also on our website is the verification portal. The verification portal is where you can actually verify yourself if you want to without actually logging into your dashboard profile, or this is where you can send your employer if they need to verify that you are actively certified. This is considered a primary source for verification of certification. And a lot of times employers will ask NCTRC if this is a primary source, and it is. So basically you would click on the portal and you could put in your certification ID number. and I will be putting mine in so you can see. And you can see my 5-year recertification due date. So this is when you are due to recertify. So anytime you're not sure, you can pull yourself up in the verification portal and you can say, oh, great, I have until 2025 to get my 50 hours of continuing education and my 480 hours of professional work experience. Here is also the initial certification date, when you first became certified. Yes, I know I have been certified for a very long time, so we will just kind of ignore that date at this point. And then your annual expiration date. This is when you are due to submit your annual maintenance application and that annual fee of $80. So if again, you are not sure when you're due, you can always verify yourself online and you would be able to see right there what your dates are. So going back to our website, I'm going to log in to a dashboard profile so that I can show you how you would upload your documents. Before I do that, I do want to bring your attention to one other area. We do webinars periodically at NCTRC, and the current webinars on here do talk about recertification, do talk about internship, tutorials for students. So if you are supervising a student and they have some questions about applying to NCTRC, they're not sure how to do it, refer them to the webinar, and it's right here, and it will walk them through step-by-step process on what they need to do to actually apply to NCTRC. We also recently did a tutorial for new CTRSs, and this tutorial basically walks through a new CTRS from soup to nuts as to what is required of you on a yearly basis, on a 5-year basis, and so forth and so on. So, you know, in your spare time, because I know we all have lots of spare time, you can certainly take a look at our tutorials. Okay, so now I am going to go to my NCTRC login. If you don't remember your username or your password, you can always click on Forgot Username. And if you have your email address that is correct in our system, and you put your email address in here and click Submit, you will get a reset password sent to that email address. If it doesn't get to you, it doesn't identify you, it doesn't recognize you, give the office a call and we will be happy to walk you through the process. In the meantime, I am going to sign in with an account that NCTRC has set up for the purpose of recertification presentations. Okay, so here is my dashboard profile. When you open your dashboard profile, you will see your certification ID. And a lot of times individuals will give us a call and they have no idea what their number is. So you can actually find that right on your dashboard profile. Your name will be here. So for the purposes of this, our name is Recertification Tutorial. Your address, your phone number, your email address is all here. If you need to change any of the information except for your name, you can click Update Information and you can change any of this information that you find on this page of your dashboard profile. Let me also direct you to this bottom part of this information. Sometimes we may send an email to you if you are an internship supervisor and ask you to go in and input your information for your employment status. We have access to this information on the NCTRC portal. And basically, when you are supervising an intern, we look to ensure that you are working 30 hours or more per week at your agency in order to supervise interns. So if you ever get that email from us, you know where you need to go to input that information. If you're not sure if you've inputted that information, after we finish the presentation, go ahead and log into your dashboard profile and check and see if the information is there. If it's not there, please go ahead and put it in. This way we have that information when you do supervise students. Going back to our main page, to give you a little bit more of a lay of your land of your dashboard profile, here are your dates. These are the same dates that we just saw on the verification portal. So my annual maintenance actually was due 12/31/2020. So I'm a little bit late in paying my annual maintenance, but I can still actually pay my annual maintenance. If I pay it late, I will have a $25 reinstatement fee. So I can still pay my annual maintenance and get myself up to date and active as a CTRS. So technically, recertification tutorial has been inactive as a CTRS since 12/31/2020. Recertification tutorial is due to submit their 5-year recertification application no later than 12/31/2021. So you can actually submit that application up to a year ahead of time. So recertification tutorial can now go into the recertification application and submit that recertification if they choose to do so. When you are due to pay your annual maintenance renewal, you will have an annual maintenance renewal link on your dashboard. If you are not due to pay your annual maintenance renewal, it will not show on your dashboard. It only comes up about 6 months or 3 months prior to your annual maintenance date. So it's not there all the time. Once you pay your renewal, it does go away. For the purposes of our presentation, I'm going to put us into the recertification, education, and work experience application. But before I do that, I do want to show you that you would click on this area anytime during your recertification cycle to print off a certificate. And if you need to change your name for any reason, you would open up the name change document, and part of this process would be uploading 2 forms of government issued ID with that name that you want NCTRC to change. NCTRC will then go into your account. We will change your name, and then we will email you letting you know that your name has been changed successfully, and you can go back in and print off a certificate with your new name on it. So we're going to go to the recertification, education, and work experience application. When you open yours up, you're not going to have a listing of all of these applications. Like I said, we use this for presentations and for the tutorial. You're going to click on create new application, and it's going to open up to this page. Now, initially, when you are due to recertify, there's only 2 steps that you need to complete in order to recertify. You need to answer your eligibility questions. So a yes or a no response. And then you're going to sign off on the declaration saying that you have read those certification standards, which we just looked at, and then you're going to click save. If for some reason you do need to check yes to one of these areas, there is an area that you would have to upload documentation explaining your yes response to the area. That yes response will be reviewed by a credentialing specialist, and then you will get notification if we need more information or notification that your application has been processed. After you answer all of these areas, you will click save on the bottom. It brings you to the next page. And this next page is basically saying that you said that you have completed a minimum of 50 hours of continuing education that relates to the NCTRC job analysis knowledge areas. I'm hoping that you're all going to say yes when you're filling this application out. And then you're also going to answer the next question that you completed a minimum of 480 hours of professional work experience. And you're all going to say yes, and you're going to click save. When you click save, you can either put in your continuing education, which you can see there has some bit added already, or you can just go to completion confirmation, and you would select yes. And then after you select yes, a submit, checkout, and make payment button will appear over here. I'm not going to select yes because once you select yes and you select save for this particular area, you cannot make any additional changes to your application. So for the purposes of saving your information, I'm going to go back to the education, the continuing education area. I have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to try to really be quick about this, guys. And what you would do is, as you attend conferences, you can actually add your continuing education to this application. You would click add. You would put, if it was a workshop or a conference, the date of the conference. You would put the session title. I went to Recert. How many hours? It was for 1 hour. And then I'm going to choose my file, and I would click on here, and I would find it on my computer, and I would upload that certificate so that I have that certificate in my application for future reference. At any time, you can actually edit the application. You can delete it. If you go in and you say, oh, this is the wrong title, this is the wrong amount, I didn't do that, you can always edit or you can always delete. So that is how you would start saving your recertification documents as you attend conferences. In this area is where you would put your internship supervision documentation, that competency evaluation that you do need to fill out. Again, you would put add, and you would follow all the instructions in order to upload that document. Just a couple of things to remind you, you can only upload one document. So if there's more than one page, you would have to complete that and make that into one PDF, and then you would submit one PDF document as part of that process. We can't put more than one document within your application. So that is the recertification presentation. I hope that I answered all of your questions. If I did not answer all of your questions, please feel free to contact NCTRC. You can contact me directly at nmolloy@nctrc.org, or you can contact NCTRC at the general email right here, and we will be sure to get back to you with answers to your questions. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference, and I really hope that we get to see each other in person next year. Bye-bye.